You did everything right. You were the present mother, the dedicated professional, the woman who held everything together when it needed to be held. You didn't give up. You didn't stop. You did what had to be done, for years. And everyone around you knew they could always count on you. And yet, you wake up in the morning with a strange feeling, a nameless emptiness. A question you push down before you've even had your coffee. Why do I still feel so lost? It's not weakness. It's not a lack of gratitude. It's not just a midlife crisis. It's something that happens silently to women who have lived so much for others that one day they realize they don't know who they are anymore when no one is needing them. When the to-do list is finally done, and in the silence that's left, they meet a stranger, themselves. And the worst part, the more you try to fix it from the outside, a makeover, a new routine, motivational quotes, the more that feeling lingers, quiet, heavy, persistent. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why this happens and what you can actually do to come back to yourself. Stay with me until the end. What you're about to hear might just change the way you see yourself. Hello, my darling. I'm Diane, and welcome to your moment. If you're here, it's probably because we have more in common than you might imagine. Yes, I've been exactly where you are right now. I've woken up in the morning not really knowing who I was. I've lived so much for others that one day I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. For many years, I was the woman who handled everything, the one who never asked for help, the one who was always fine, or at least I pretended to be. I thought that was strength. I thought taking care of everyone, without complaining, without stopping, without showing weakness, was what I was supposed to do. It was who I was. It was my identity. And for a long time, that was enough. Until the day my body just stopped. Not all at once. It was gradual. A fatigue that sleep couldn't fix. A sadness with no apparent cause. The kind of sadness that's hard to explain because, on the surface, everything looked fine. A growing sense that I was living a life that had my name on it, lived at my address, and slept in my bed. But somehow, it wasn't mine anymore. It was as if I had become a background character in my own story, without realizing it. That's when I understood. I had spent so much time building a good life for everyone around me that I had completely forgotten about myself. It didn't happen overnight. It happened in pieces. A compromise here, a suppressed desire there, a dream that grew quieter and quieter until I forgot it was even mine. The process of finding myself again wasn't fast. It wasn't linear. And it definitely didn't come from a self-help book or a pretty quote saved on my phone. It came from a lot of silence. From difficult questions, I finally had the courage to sit down and ask myself. From small choices, made every single day, in the direction of my own soul. And that's how this channel was born. Not to give you canned answers. Not to sell you a 7-step transformation, but to walk beside you, with honesty, with care, and with the clarity of someone who has stood right where you are standing now. What I share here isn't theory. It's what worked for me. It's what I've seen work for real women with real lives, full of responsibilities, noise, and people depending on them. These are simple, practical tools that fit into your day. Because I know your life doesn't stop while you're trying to find yourself. And I believe one thing with all my heart, it doesn't matter how long you've been lost. You can find your way back. This video is a step in that direction. The fact that you're here, listening to me right now, already tells me something important. A part of you already knows that the time has come. But before we go any further, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear this. You are not broken. I know it feels like you are sometimes, because you look at your life and you see so many good things, and yet you can't seem to feel them. You try to be grateful. You try to focus on the positive. You try to psych yourself up. But deep down, there's that dull, constant, heavy ache that won't go away. It's there when you wake up. It's there when you lay your head down. It's even there in the middle of a family dinner, when everyone is laughing and you are physically present, but mentally drifting somewhere you can't even name. And then comes the worst part, the guilt. That feeling that you don't have the right to feel this way. After all, people are going through much worse, right? You have a home, a family, your health. So why do you still feel so empty? I'll tell you why. Because emptiness isn't ingratitude. Emptiness is a signal. It's your body, your soul, telling you that something vital was left behind somewhere along the road. And ignoring that signal doesn't make it disappear. It only makes it scream louder. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because someone needed it. Not because it was on the list. Not because it was the right thing to do. Just because you wanted to. Just because it brought you joy. You had to think about it for a second, didn't you, my darling? That's how it starts. Silently. You give up one thing here, a desire there. You push your needs to the later pile. You put everyone else first, and you start to think that's normal. That this is just how it works. That being a good mother, a good wife, a good professional, or a good daughter means putting yourself last. And you've done it so well for so long that you stopped noticing you were doing it at all. Years go by. You're still on the list, but always at the very bottom. Always after. Always when there's time left over. And there is never time left over. The exhaustion you feel isn't weakness. It's the result of years spent carrying a weight that was never meant to be yours alone. It's the result of being a woman who was so good at taking care of others that she never learned how to take care of herself without feeling selfish. I know that exhaustion. I've carried that exhaustion. And it has a name, identity depletion. It's what happens when you do so much, for so long, for so many people, that at some point you lose the thread that connects you to yourself. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens drop by drop, choice by choice, silence by silence. And do you know what the hardest part of this process is? You don't notice it while it's happening, because you're too busy, because there's always something more urgent, because life doesn't pause to warn you that you're losing yourself. It only stops when you're already too far away. If you recognize yourself in what I'm describing, I want you to know, this is not a character flaw. This is what happens to strong women who were never taught that strength includes putting themselves in the equation. But here's the good news. There is a way back. To find it, though, we first have to understand how you got here. Because without understanding the root, any solution is just a band-aid on a wound that needs something much deeper. That's exactly what we're going to talk about next. So, let's talk about what's really going on. Because I know you've already tried to fix this. You've tried keeping yourself busier. You've tried doing less. You've tried a new gym, a new hobby, a new routine. Maybe you changed your hair, renovated a room in the house, or planned a vacation. And for a moment, it seemed to work. That heavy feeling lifted just a bit. You caught your breath. And then it came back. Sometimes even stronger than before. And you're left wondering, what is wrong with me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The problem isn't you. The problem is that you've been trying to solve an internal issue with external solutions. And that never works. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because the wound is in a place that no outside change can reach. Let me explain it with a simple image. Imagine you have a pebble in your shoe. That pebble is hurting you with every step you take. Someone tells you, buy a new pair of shoes. So you do. But the pebble is still there. Then someone says, change the route you walk. So you change it. But the pebble is still there. Then someone says, just focus on the beautiful scenery, not the pain. And you try. But the pebble is still there. The only real solution is to stop. Take off the shoe and remove the pebble. In your case, my darling, the pebble is this. For years, maybe decades, you built your entire identity around the roles you played. Mother, wife, daughter, professional, caretaker. You became what you did. And what you did was almost always for someone else. This isn't your fault. It's what we are taught from a very young age. We're told that a woman's value lies in how much she gives, how much she serves, how much she can endure. We're taught that a good woman is the one who puts everyone else first and smiles while doing it. You learned that lesson very well. Too well. And then came the day when the kids grew up, or the marriage shifted, or your career stabilized, Or maybe the frantic pace of life just hit a brief pause. And suddenly, without all those roles filling up every second of your time, a question emerged that you couldn't answer. Who am I when I'm not being all these things for everyone else? That is the emptiness you feel. It's not weakness. It's not going crazy. It is a real identity crisis. The crisis of a woman who has lived so much for the outside world that she lost touch with what exists inside, with what she likes, with what she dreams about, with what she feels when no one is watching and no one is needing anything from her. And that's why nothing you've tried has truly worked, because changing your shoes doesn't get rid of the pebble. Changing what's on the outside doesn't fix what's on the inside. The question you need to start asking isn't, what should I change about my life? The question is, who am I underneath everything I do? That question is terrifying. I know, because sometimes we don't have the answer, and not knowing is scarier than any problem with a clear solution. But that is exactly where the way back begins. Not when you have all the answers, but when you have the courage to sit with the question. Now, I want to show you how this process of losing yourself actually happens in practice. Because once you understand the mechanism, once you see the pattern clearly, it loses the power it has over you. To understand this mechanism, I need to tell you a story. Not one from a book, but about a real woman. Her name was Laura, 48 years old, 2 adult children, married for 22 years. She had a solid career at a company where everyone depended on her to solve every problem. From the outside, her life looked exactly like what most people would call success. But Laura came to me with a sentence I've never forgotten. She said, "Diane, I wake up every day and I just wait to feel something, anything. And it doesn't come. It's like I'm living behind a pane of glass." Behind glass. Have you ever felt that way, my darling? Present but distant. Functioning but not living. Going through the motions but not feeling. On autopilot. As if life is happening to you, but without you actually in it. Like you're an actress in your own story, and at some point, you forgot that you were supposed to be the lead. When I started talking to Laura, it became clear that this disconnection hadn't started overnight. There was a history, a pattern, and that pattern began much earlier than she imagined. In her early 20s, Laura was full of plans. She wanted to write. She wanted to travel. She had a list, not written down, but alive inside her, of things she wanted to feel, experience, and discover about herself. And then, life happened. Marriage came. Children came. Responsibility grew from every direction. And Laura did what women are taught to do from day one. She adjusted. She yielded. She pushed her own plans to the later pile. In the beginning, it was small. She gave up a trip because it wasn't the right time. She stopped writing because she didn't have time. She stopped seeing friends because her calendar was always full. She skipped the class she wanted to take because there were other priorities. Each choice in isolation seemed reasonable, noble even. After all, she was prioritizing her family. She was being responsible. She was doing what was expected of her. But what no one tells you is that every time you set yourself aside, something subtle and powerful happens. You send a message to your inner self. The message is this: what I want doesn't matter that much. What I need can wait. I can wait. And your inner self hears it, and it starts to believe it. After years of receiving that message, your inner self stops suggesting. It stops dreaming big. It stops asking, because it learned that it doesn't matter anyway. And that is when the emptiness truly sets in. Not because you lost the ability to feel, but because you trained yourself to ignore what you feel for years, without even realizing it. Laura hadn't lost who she was. She had buried who she was, little by little, with the best intentions in the world. And when the kids grew up and the house got quieter, when work settled into a routine and life stopped demanding so much from her on all sides at once, what was left was this strange silence, this nameless void, this feeling of being lost inside her own life. Because the life she had built was good. It was even beautiful. But it was a life built entirely around others. And when those others grew up, moved on, or stabilized, Laura was left not knowing what to do with herself, not knowing what she wanted, not knowing who she was when no one needed her. It was as if her reason for existing had moved to a new address, and she never got the forwarding notice. Let me ask you a question now, and I want you to really stop and think before moving on. If you had to describe who you are, not what you do, not the roles you play, but who you are, in just 3 words, what would they be? Leave a comment below. I really want to know, because that simple question reveals so much about where you are on the road back to yourself. And here's the most important point of everything I'm going to tell you today. You didn't get lost because you are weak. You didn't get lost because you failed. You got lost because you were too good at caring, at giving, at supporting everyone around you. And no one warned you that you needed to save a piece of all that for yourself. No one taught you that putting yourself on the list isn't selfish, it's a necessity. There is a version of you from 10 years ago who had plans, big plans, and at some point, life happened, and those plans got quieter and quieter until you forgot they were even yours. But they are still there. Buried, yes. Quiet, yes. But there. And it is possible to come back, not to the woman you were before, because you've grown, you've changed, and that's not a loss. It's an evolution. But to a version of you who knows who she is, who feels what she feels, who chooses with intention, who exists not just for others, but for herself, too. That return begins with a shift in perspective that might seem simple, but it changes absolutely everything that comes after. That is what I want to show you now. I want to ask you to do something right now, just for a moment. Stop thinking about what you've lost and start considering what is actually happening. I know that might sound strange, but listen to me. All this time, you've been looking at this emptiness as a problem, as a failure, as proof that something went wrong with you. And I get it. It makes sense to see it that way. When we feel empty, our immediate conclusion is, something is wrong with me. I should be fine, and I'm not. But what if I told you that the emptiness isn't a failure? What if the emptiness is actually the signal that you are ready? Think about it with me. Emptiness isn't the absence of you. Emptiness is space. It's the room that opened up once you, perhaps for the first time in many years, began to realize that the old version of yourself no longer fits. That the roles you played for so long aren't all that you are. That there is something more, something uniquely yours, waiting to be recognized and lived. When a house goes through a renovation, it gets messy for a while. There's dust, there's noise, there are things out of place. Someone looking in from the outside might think it's being destroyed. But someone who understands the process knows that mess isn't the end. It's the middle. It's the space being cleared so that something new, something more authentic, can be built. That is exactly what is happening to you. You aren't being destroyed. You are under renovation. And the woman who emerges from this process won't be the same one who went in. She will be a more conscious version, more whole. A woman who knows what she wants because she learned, the hard way, the cost of ignoring it for so long. But I need to be honest with you about one thing, my darling. I'm not going to tell you to just love yourself more. That's not how it works, and you know that. Self-love isn't born by decree. It's not a decision you just make one morning and poof, it's done. It's a journey. It's a practice. It's a series of small choices made every single day that slowly rebuild your relationship with yourself, brick by brick. But it all starts with this shift in perspective. Stop treating the emptiness as the enemy. Start treating it as your starting point. Because being lost is not the same as being lost forever. Being lost is a coordinate. It's a piece of information. It's the map telling you, you are here. And if you know where you are, you can plot the course back. There is a huge difference between being lost and being stuck. Being lost means you need guidance. Being stuck would mean there's nowhere to go. And that is not what's happening. There is a path, there is a direction, and you've already taken the first step just by being here. The fact that you've made it to this point in the video tells me something important. A part of you already knows that the time has come. Not the time to demand more of yourself, the time to find yourself. And that is exactly why I brought you what comes next. So, let's talk about what you can actually do. For real. Today. Not tomorrow when things are calmer, not on Monday when you plan to start over. Today, with what you have, with the life you're already living. Because one of the most common traps in this process is thinking you need a massive overhaul to begin, a total life pivot, a monumental decision. And while you wait for that big shift to appear, life just keeps passing you by. But reconnecting with yourself doesn't work that way. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in tiny, repeated, intentional moments. That's where you rebuild yourself. That's where you remember who you are. I'm going to give you 3 starting points. These aren't rules. They aren't chores to add to a list, so you can stress over them. They are doors. You choose which one to walk through first, and whichever door you choose is already a beginning. The first point is this. Start asking yourself how you feel before you ask yourself what you should do. Most of us were trained to act before we feel. The to-do list rules, the calendar rules, everyone else's needs rule, and our own feelings stay on indefinite hold. But an ignored feeling doesn't disappear. It accumulates. It becomes that very weight you're carrying without being able to name it. Once a day, it could be in the morning, before bed, or those 5 minutes you sit in the car before walking into the house. Sit with yourself for a moment and ask, how am I really doing? Not how you should be doing. Not how you'd answer if a neighbor asked, how are you inside right now? You don't need the right answer. You just need to create the habit of asking. Because that question alone is an act of self-care. It's you saying, every day, what I feel matters. The second point is this. Choose one small thing that is yours alone and protect it. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to impress anyone. It could be 30 minutes reading a book you actually like. It could be a walk without headphones, just you and your thoughts. It could be cooking something you love without making it for anyone else. It could be picking up that hobby you abandoned years ago that still pops into your head every now and then. The size doesn't matter. What matters is that it's yours. That it isn't on the list because of someone else. That you do it because you want to, because it gives you pleasure, because it reminds you that you are a person with preferences and tastes, with an inner life that deserves just as much attention as everyone else's. And when someone tries to take that time away, you protect it. With kindness, but with firmness, because learning to protect your time is learning to respect yourself. And self-respect isn't selfish. It's the foundation for everything that comes next. The third point is this. Stop waiting to feel ready to start. This is the subtlest trap of all. We wait for the right moment, the right motivation, the right mood. We wait until we feel strong enough or confident enough to take the next step. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. You act first, even while scared, even while insecure, and the confidence grows as a result. You don't have to be okay to start. You start and you become okay along the way. I'm not talking about giant leaps. I'm talking about the smallest step possible. What is the tiniest thing you could do today? Just today, in your own direction. That's it. Just that. Start there. And before we wrap up, one last thing, my darling. This process isn't linear. You'll have good days and days where you feel like you're back at square one. In those hard moments, I want you to remember, a setback isn't a failure. It's part of the path. What defines this journey isn't whether you fall, it's whether you get back up, and you will get back up, because you are already on your way. Just by being here, until this very moment, you are already coming back to yourself. My darling, I want to tell you one thing before you go. You made it this far. You stayed. You listened. And that is no small thing, because I know it's so much easier to close the video, go back to the list, back to autopilot, and pretend that feeling isn't there. But you stayed. You reached the end. And that tells me everything I need to know about you. There is a part of you that hasn't given up. A part that still believes it's possible to find your way back. A part that still feels there's something inside waiting to be lived. And that part of you is right. You deserve to be your own priority. Not when the kids grow up. not when work eases up, not when things get easier, or when you finally feel ready. Now, exactly as your life is today. With all its imperfections, its reality, and its uniqueness, you spent years being everything to everyone. You carried it all with strength, dedication, and so much love. Now, it's time to direct a little bit of that toward yourself, too. Not as a sacrifice, but as a choice, as the most important act of care you can perform. For yourself and for everyone you love. I'm not going to ask for anything huge, just one small thing. Take one of those 3 doors with you today. Just one. The smallest possible step in your own direction. That is enough. That is a real beginning. And if this video touched something inside you, if you recognized yourself in any part of what I said, if something clicked in a way you didn't expect, I want you to comment below. Tell me where you are. Tell me how you're feeling. 3 words, 1 sentence, whatever comes to mind. I read every single one. Always. Your story matters. If you want to continue on this path with me, please subscribe to the channel. Every week I bring a new conversation. Always with honesty, no miracle formulas, and zero judgment. Just us, talking about what really matters in life after 40. This was your moment. Take care of yourself. Until next time.